So we have been we're at the tail end of a series called Momentum. And the whole idea is we're looking at what does it mean to have an impact as a church. And we talked about this in terms of, I've introduced you parts of what I call the discipleship wheel. And I said, hey, you know what, this wheel really kind of represents what we're hoping that God does here at Trinity Church. That we more and more grow in the way we love God. That we more and more grow in the way that we live like Jesus. That we more and more we grow in the way we share. And that we just continue to grow, period. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you were raised in a church, you're like, thanks, I appreciate that, but what's the vision of the church? I mean, all this is fine and dandy, but what's the vision of the church? And what they're usually asking is something like, what is that one thing that we're gonna come together and we're going to say, put our stake in the ground, right? I know some churches, their goal, it's all about, we don't want to see a lot of baptism. We want to see people come to the Lord and be baptized. For other churches, it's this vision, you know what, we want to get in the community and let them know that Jesus cares for them. That if this church disappeared, our community would mourn because we're no longer here. Some others have a vision, you know what, we want to get everybody in God's Word on a daily basis, just really interacting with Him. And others are, you know what, we want to get everybody connected into fellowship when we're having spiritual conversations into a small group. And others maybe, you know what, we want to show everyone that they have a place in the church and get them volunteering and get them serving. And those are all phenomenal visions. They're all something that to rally folks to that really, really is helpful. And I've been a part of and know of many churches that each have those things as their vision. But if I could put my finger on one thing for us, it'd be difficult, to be honest with you. Because I really do think it's about, for us, at least right now, it really is about this wheel. Let me take you to Ephesians chapter 4, 11 through 16. It says this, it was Christ who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, some to be pastors and teachers. In other words, Christ called some folks like myself, like Corey and our pastoral staff, our small group leaders, Chuck, who's teaching the marriage class, called us to equip people, to teach, to lead, to unfold the scriptures. He's called some people to do that. Why? To prepare God's people for works of service. So that's everybody else. If you don't land in the first category, an equipper, then your job is to do works of service, also translated as ministry, so that what? The body of Christ, that's the church, may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith. We're one mind on the gospel. That's why we made such a big deal about it. And in the knowledge of the Son of God, that is Jesus, who He is and what He represented. And here it is, become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Every church's vision, every church's mission is that we grow to maturity. We may stress certain aspects of that maturity, meeting with God, impacting the community, seeing people come to Christ, abiding, all those different things. But not one of them constitutes God's overall vision, if you would, impact that He would have us for the church, because they're all parts of it. And if I could boil down the overall vision, now we're going to do some of those things. We sometimes concentrate on those things. I think sometimes it's important we're going to work on this one thing. We're going to talk about that today. But if I could boil it down to what's our vision? Our vision is to help our folks, the folks that come and that are part of this gathering of Jesus followers, simply to mature, to grow. That's the bottom line, is to grow. Especially if you're new to Trinity Church, you're like, okay, what do you want from me? We want to see you spiritually grow. This is what we want to see. And so today we're going to talk about 5 different areas of what I kind of call, this is the ask. What are we asking from you? I'm going to be as clear as I possibly can today. All right? Now you're going to need the information inside your bulletin. That's why I wanted to make sure everybody had a bulletin. Because this information will work 2 ways. First of all, we want to generally find out where is our church? Where are you? And so there's a large handout, a survey in your bulletin that you're going to fill out anonymously and you're going to let us have. Okay, you're going to turn this into us. Don't start filling it out yet. We'll give you time for that. Okay? This is to help us to know where you are and how we might need to start concentrating to help everybody move forward. It's very important that you do not put on this sheet what you would like to be or what you think the neighbor next to you wants you to put down, but where you actually are. Because the clearer picture that we have of where you actually are, where our people actually are, it'll help us move forward. Now, in your notes are some specific questions that are just for you that we will reflect on, that we will get to. So here's the first ask. Attend. Attend. The first step is just simply to attend, to be here. It's fine if you're traveling to watch online, but that's not the same as attending. One of the most fruitful things that we did as a family when my kids were teenagers is there were several years that we went to a large church. They had a youth conference. It was just a lot of fun. It was really loud. It wasn't Lynn and I, my wife and I's scene at all. But what it did is we took our kids. It was basically our family and a bunch of youth groups. And it's like, well, Joel, why didn't you just have Tony, our youth pastor, why don't you just have him take your kids? The reason is because we knew that if we went in between the sessions and stuff, we'd listen to somebody speak, we'd sit down, go to lunch, and we'd have this discussion with our kids about the speaker. Otherwise, what would they do? They'd go with the youth pastor, they'd come back, and we'd say, how did it go? And they'd go, oh, it was okay. Anything special happened? No, it was all right. And you know what? That wasn't true. They completely loved it. But we wouldn't know that if we weren't there with them. God does some amazing things that you miss if you're not here. And I'm not talking about the message. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of better speakers out there you can listen online than me. If it was just about that, I don't think you come to hear me. I hope that it's helpful for you. I hope that God uses that. But it's about people coming together and sharing an experience so that they can share. Hebrews 10:24 through 25. In the midst of this, he just says, let us not give up meeting together. It was a central issue for them. So it's really simple. So what I like you to do is, there's 2 parts to this, okay? Corey's going to play some music to kind of give you some time to do this. So you're going to need a pen. On your sheet, I want you to answer the first 2 questions at the top. How long have you been attending Trinity Church? Right, like I would mark 8 and I would circle years. How long have you been a follower of Jesus? Put the years or months that you've been following Jesus. And if you're not, put not. That's great. And then just answer the 2 questions under attend. Just those 2 questions. And then on your handout is a specific question. I believe the Lord would have me attend. And I just want you, that's personal. The survey, you can just get through that. That's for our information. But then I want you to spend a little time in this next song really reflecting on what you believe the Lord. I believe the Lord would have me attend, and mark one of those boxes. So let's just reflect on that. So the first ask is to attend. The second ask is to connect. And this part actually has two parts. The first connect is, if you would, it's a vertical. It's the most important connect, right? As we're kind of going through this momentum, we said that the heart of everything that we do is the good news. The good news that God has designed us to be in relationship with Him. And though that has been broken and we are broken people, He did He spared nothing to restore us into Himself so that we could be back in relationship with Him. Right? And as Jesus is preparing to leave in John 15, He tells them, abide in me. And he uses a scenario where he talks about the branches being connected to the vine. You cannot have spiritual life if you're not connected to Jesus. If you don't spend regular time with Him. And so we unashamedly say, hey, if you want to grow, you need to spend more and more time, concentrated relational time with Jesus. It is impossible to spiritually grow otherwise. Quite frankly, if you absolutely had to choose between spending regular time with God and coming on Sunday, spend regular time with God. Now, both are important. But that's how important abiding is. It supersedes what we do on Sunday. It supersedes it. Now, hopefully what we do on Sunday encourages that. And for a lot of folks, they weren't educated throughout time. Most people were not literate. And so what they got on Sunday is what they reflected on and took before God the rest of the week. That's one of the reasons the gathering was so important. It's what the community talked about and encouraged one another, because they could not read their Bibles. There was no Bibles to read, or there was no literacy to read the ones that there were, or it was too expensive. If the first connect is vertical, the second one is horizontal, and that is we want you to connect with one another. And it could be as simple as, in your attendance, don't just come in last minute and leave as soon as it's over, or as soon as you grab your coffee. It's connect, get to know people, get to know their stories, get to know their hurts, get to know what you're going to find out is there's a bunch of other messed up people just like you here. And we have some good stories, and we have some struggles, and God's accomplished some things in our life, but there's other things He still needs to accomplish. And then we get to hear your story, and we get to encourage one another. Back to Hebrews 10 again, right? That starts out, verse 24 says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. The Bible is filled with, especially the New Testament is filled with, love one another, encourage one another, be patient with one another, bear one another's burdens. If you don't spend any time together, you can't do the one another's. And if you can't do the one another's, you can't grow. This is one of the reasons we are constantly giving you opportunity to join a small group. And we're working on a time where we understand sometimes it's hard to get here in midweek. And so we're hoping to start a consistent small group that happens every Sunday morning. So you can attend one service, and I think for you guys it'll work out well because it'll be at 11. So you'll be able to attend the 9 and go to a small group at the second hour. But it's not just about information, it's about spending time with one another, encouraging one another, hearing from one another. So connect vertically. I believe the Lord wants me to connect to Him. How? I believe the Lord wants me to connect with other Christians. How? And so again, I want to give you time in your survey, there's those two parts. So we'll give you a little extra time this time. There's connecting with God. How's that happening? And then there's connecting with others. How's that happening? Please be honest, because we want to serve you. And then take some time in your personal notes. What would God have you do? Let's just reflect on what it means to connect. So the ask is to attend. The ask is to connect. And the third part of the ask, what we want to hope to see from your life is that you'll serve. Is that you'll serve. Serving is where you really practice the things that you are learning. If you don't get into a situation where people drive you nuts, it doesn't matter that morning you read and God said to you, you need to be more patient with people. You've got to practice that. And I believe that the church is not a place where you come where everybody has it together. Actually, I think the church is a place that you come where at least there are somewhat people that you like that still drive you nuts, and you practice your patience here. So when you go out in the world and you meet folks that really drive you nuts, well, you've got some practice. You got some practice. Serving is where we walk in the dust of our Master who laid down his life for those that he loved. And all in each of these categories, I'm not saying don't picture the attend. I got to attend every Sunday and I'm going to come 30 minutes early no, just take one more step. If you're not spending any time connecting with God, just pick one morning. Don't try to do every morning. But if you are doing every morning, think, well, what's another way that can I lean in? Or what's another way I can connect with others? Just take one step. And the same thing with service. If you're not serving at all, well, then just take an occasional opportunity. Join. We're going to be asking for volunteers soon for Hunt. That's a one-day event. Just start serving occasionally. Or maybe you are serving occasionally now, but it's time to kind of step up and doing something a little bit more consistent, twice a month or every week. Or maybe you've been doing that, and God's just kind of saying, you know, it's time that I know you don't feel prepared, but it's not a matter about you being prepared. It's a matter about you trusting me and take some leadership and lead something. Galatians 5:13 through 14. Paul is encouraging the Galatians to live free in Christ, but in the midst of being free, serve one another. You see this contrast all the time in the New Testament. For those who are following the dust of the Master, you are free. You only have to give report to him, but in the midst of your freedom, be like Jesus and serve others. And serve others specifically in love. Now you'll notice another thing in your handout, this pink slip, that has a list of serving opportunities. And it's actually divided up between serving opportunities that are just occasional, serving opportunities that are regular, and serving opportunities that are more leadership-minded. And so I would encourage you to kind of go to the survey and tell us where you are, how you are serving. But then when you go to your personal reflection, and you have time, you don't have to do this right now. That's a long conversation between you and God. But spend some time thinking, God, where do you want me to step up? How do you want me to serve? So right now, just do the survey and then begin to reflect on, is there anything, Lord, just open up your heart. Is there anything, Lord, where you want me to step in and say, I believe the Lord wants me to serve? Let's take some time and reflect on that. So in your growth, we're asking you to attend. We're asking you to connect. We're asking you to serve. And then now this is going to seem a little weird, but we're asking that you grow. Now you would say, now wait a second. I mean, isn't that first of all the overall thing, and isn't that kind of happening? Isn't why? And yes, the answer is yes. As you attend, you will grow. As you connect with God and others, you will grow. As you serve, you will grow. But when we talk about grow, we're talking about a specific kind of growth. Because the Bible gives a picture of many people who attend their synagogue or their church. They actually spend time in prayer and reading the scriptures. They are part of the community, and they're, to a certain degree, they're serving, they're doing things outwardly that they're supposed to do. And Jesus calls them whitewashed tombs. You look good on the outside, but there ain't nothing on the inside. They're hypocrites. And so when we're talking about spiritual growth, we want to keep away from the appearance of religiosity, the appearance of knowing Jesus, when inside we're really dead. And so it is our hope that you'll be transformed, that the growth will be from the inside out, not the other way around. And that more and more the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5, the love and joy and peace and patience and kindness will begin to kind of come up, and God will begin to transform your heart. We took you through 2 Peter chapter 1, remember 5 through 8, where he says, for this very reason, make every effort, what? To add to your faith. And then he goes through the list, goodness, knowledge, all the way up through love. There's an expectation that you won't just believe, that you just won't know, that you just won't have self-control, but that will all lead to love. Where you begin to lay down your life, you begin to lay down your will, you begin to lay down your plans, you begin to lay down your family and your retirement for others, for the sake of God. That's the particular kind of growth. Now, this is a hard one to measure. This really is something but I can tell you this, the people around you, including those, your brothers and sisters in Christ, we begin to see it. Hopefully you see it even in my life, the difference between, this is what the Bible means, but seeing in my life that I'm growing in patience and the way I'm leading and how I'm interacting with others. You see God's transforming my heart. And so, again, part of the survey, it's just, we just like to know where you feel like you are in your growth. Are you growing? Are you not growing? What it is that you believe is helping you grow the most, right? There's a lot of things that God is using to help you grow, but what are no more than two things that you think these are the key things that right now God is using to grow me? And then on the personal level, this was the hardest one to come up with a personal question. And again, this is going to take reflection, but when you answer the question, I believe the Lord would have me focus on growing in the following area. We were just trying, what are issues of the heart? Like purity of thought life, like control of the tongue, to the courage to obey God's word, even when society around me goes, are you kidding? The freedom from controlling emotions, like anger or shame or jealousy or so forth. The extension of forgiveness to someone that doesn't deserve it. Or maybe there's something, you notice we'll put an other category there where you can just fill it in. What is that heart issue? So again, we'd appreciate on the survey if you let us know that so we know how to best serve you. But we really want you to reflect and think about what is the God saying to you? I really want you to concentrate on this. Or probably more appropriately, I'd like to do this in you. And then see what he might show you on how he might accomplish that work in you. Let's just reflect on what it means to grow in the Lord. So we ask that you attend. We ask that you connect. We ask that you serve. Ultimately, we ask that you grow, that your heart begins to change. And we understand that's not something that you decide. It's something that God does in you. And the last one is we ask that you share. But you gotta understand that for us, sharing isn't a box that you check. It's not. There's not a particular program where we teach you, the 4 spiritual laws or the bridge illustration or whatever, and we go out and just say, share this with as many people as you come across. Now, we may do some of those things to help you, but it is our belief that when something radically transforms your life, that you'll naturally share it. If a diet is working, no one has to give you a program on how to share it. You just do it. If a certain investment approach is helping you, when you come across people you care about, again, the investment folks don't have to say, now when you share about, no, you just do it. Because you're so excited, and the people on the outside see, right, that you're losing weight. They see that you have a little bit more income. You're not as worried about college as other folks. And sharing in our life should flow from the same. It's not simply a command that we follow, but it's a natural response to God's goodness in our lives. And it is our belief that if we're not sharing, then either you're not really following after God, or your eyes aren't open to what He's doing in your life. And for some reason, you're taking all His blessings as that's just what, the result of your work. But if you're engaged in the first 4, right? If you're in not only here, but you're kind of attending, and God's beginning to stir some things, you got something to share. If you begin to connect with Him, and someone says, how's your day going? You begin to say, you know what? I actually read in my Bible this morning, and then this is how this day worked out based on what God showed me. You have something to share. When you're moving and your neighbors are going like, what's going on? Or you need some help clearing something out, and all of a sudden, the 10, 12 people from your small group show up to help with whatever it is. They see that community. You have something to share. I'm so blessed that I'm part of a community that loves me this way. When people begin to say to you, hey, you know what, I for the last 5 family reunions, right, it's always been a little tense with you. Or you've always had some tension with Uncle so-and-so, but there was something different this year. You got something to share. Well, God's doing something in me. He's making me more patient, forgiving, whatever it may be. You have something to share. And you don't need a program to teach you how to do that. Now, you might want to get better at it, which is great. There's fine, nothing wrong with that. We'll teach you that as well. But that's secondary to being, the idea of being a witness is actually literally being a witness. When you go up in a witness stand, they're not expecting you to spat out, right, the 4 steps to being a witness. When you're called to the witness stand, they simply want to do this. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you experience? We don't want anything more. If you actually say, well, so-and-so said, nope, I don't care what so-and-so says. You're a witness. Tell me what you're witnessing. And so when the Bible says we're His witnesses, it just means that we're witnesses of what He's doing in our life. 1 Peter 3:15 says, set apart Christ in our hearts, but it says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. And again, that reason to be prepared maybe has to do with why I believe in whatever. But I think really the answer is, this is what Jesus is doing in my life. This is what Jesus is doing in my life. Be prepared. And so we're not quite there, but we're going to get to a place where I'm going to ask you to finish out the survey and answer the question I believe the Lord wants me to share with others. And maybe you're doing fine. Maybe it's not even the good news. Maybe He simply wants you to learn to begin to share what He's doing in your life. Maybe with other Christians. It'd be nice in the hallways out here if our discussions went more beyond football, beyond work, and maybe start talking to other Christians about this is what God's doing in my life. Maybe it's just simply sharing what he's showing you in his word, what he's doing in your life. Maybe it's your testimony. Maybe there's some specific people that he wants you to begin to pray for and share something specific with. I don't know what it is. That's between you and God. But I do know this. He wants you to share. He wants you and I to share. Now, last week, as many of you all know, there is a great national event happening called the Super Bowl, whether you like it or not. It's all centered around this game, football. Now, in the beginning of the season, if you ask all 32 teams, what is your goal? Every single team would say, our goal is to go to and hopefully win the Super Bowl. But there's only one team in the last 18 years that has been there half of the time. 9 out of 18 times, which is unheard of. Unheard of. And they've won 6 of the 9. And they happen to have won last week. Now, for most people who are watching, because there wasn't a lot of touchdowns, they thought it was a boring game. But I can guarantee you this, the New England Patriots really don't care how bored you were. They're national champions. And the question has to be asked, what sets them apart? What sets them apart? And it's interesting because they have this basic motto that just says, do your job. And they seem to get average, everyday folks. They have less Pro Bowlers, less special people, Hall of Fame folks, than most teams that win the Super Bowl. And it's simply everybody concentrating, doing their job, and working hard. This last week, after they won the Super Bowl, Stephen Gilmore is quoted. He's the cornerback for New England, who made that interception, kind of sealed the game. He's quoted as saying this. He says, "It's not easy to be a Patriot. It's a grind every day. Even when we win games, it feels like we lose sometimes because it's hard. We want to be perfect, and sometimes we're not. Truth is, they're always not. But it's worth it. Everything is worth it." The difference between the New England Patriots and a lot of other teams is the amount of discipline and selflessness and hard work that a lot of teams are like, we would like to win whatever. A lot of people are, I would like to be a doctor. I'd like to be a lawyer. I'd like my investment to grow. But you know what they lack? The discipline and the will to do the hard work to get that thing done. So let me just tell you up front, if you want to spiritually grow, well, welcome to the club. But everyone wants to be in great shape. But who's willing to get up early in the morning and go to the fitness place and do the work? Who's willing to replace the cheeseburger and fries with a salad and light dressing?
Now you're meddling.
Yeah, I know. Paul says it this way in 1 Corinthians 9. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? And then he says, turning it spiritually, run in such a way as to get the prize. Well done, good and faithful servant. Everyone who competes in the game does go into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. By the way, Paul says his crown is the people who are now in glory because of his hard work. Therefore, Paul says, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. In other words, I have purpose in my training. Is there purpose in the reason that you come to church? Is there purpose in the way that you're trying to spiritually grow? No, he says, I beat my body and I make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, tell others this good news, I myself will not be qualified for the prize. I myself will not be disqualified. I myself will hear from Jesus, well done, good and faithful servant. Not, hey, you finally got it all together. Not, you got it perfect. No, you know what? You had your eye on the prize, loving me and loving others. Well done. When you fell down, you got back up, you started doing it again. When you made a mistake and the flesh took over and you kind of went off the rail, right? I revealed it, I convicted you, you confessed and got back on it. Well done. Well done. It is our goal. It is our goal to, in essence, to get in your face a little bit, to come alongside of you, to push if necessary, to maturity, that we may run the race with intentionality, that you may attend more, that you may connect with God more, connect with others more, that you may serve more, that you may grow more, that you may share more. Why? So that you may have a taste of God's good, perfect, and pleasing will. That you might actually have more absolute miracles that happen in your life. And miracles normally flow from obedience. That you may feel joy amidst the circumstances because you're so close with God that those things are falling around you. You're like, God's got this. And I'm not talking about somebody I've learned of. I'm talking about somebody I met with this morning. That's the dream. That's our goal. And let me tell you, if that begins to happen, you'll share it. You'll share it. It'll just flow right out of you. The question is, do you really want it? I mean, I know if I said, would you like this? You'd go, yes. Who wouldn't? But really want it means, are you willing to get up a little earlier? Come a little earlier to church? Spend some time with some messy people? Do the hard thing God's asking you to do? Do your part so God can do His. So again, I want you to go ahead and finish that survey and then begin to reflect a little bit on what it means to share. But overall, I want you to ask God, show me, Lord, what that roadblock is where I can just take one more step that I might grow. And please, again, make sure that we have accurate information. If you didn't have time or somehow you snuck in the end and you don't have a survey, please grab one, fill it out, and get into an usher or my hands. Let's just take some time and reflect on that. In his letter to the Thessalonians, Paul writes this. He says, finally, brothers, it's chapter 4, we instructed you in how to live in order to please God. In fact, you are living. He said, we gave you instruction, kind of like what we've just done over the 5 weeks. And he says, good job. Now, he says, we ask and urge you in the Lord Jesus to do this more and more. And that's what I want you to hear. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with this huge list that you have to accomplish. I just want you to take another step. I just want to challenge myself to take another step. I hope that you're blessed with spiritual growth more and more. And that God blesses you with the wisdom to hear Him, discern His voice, and just take that one step this week. And may you be blessed with abundant life in that area this week. And may you become gospel addicted to His work in your life. Go walk in the dust of our Master Jesus Christ. God bless.